Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us today for our third interview in honor of Black History Month. Today, we are talking to Michele Dobson, who is an attorney right here in Long Beach. So, thanks so much for joining us, Michele.
Thank you for having me.
So, I think we just wanted to start off with a little bit about who you are and what you do.
I am a native of Long Beach. I grew up on the west side. So I'm a west side kid and went to Long Beach Poly and Long Beach State before going on to law school. Go Jackrabbits and go Beach.
Woohoo!
Um, and ended up settling here in Long Beach and proud mother of two kids, a middle schooler and a high schooler. And my firm is here. I started off as a public defender, then went into a wonderful boutique law firm here in Long Beach that defends doctors and hospitals when they're sued for malpractice. I really enjoyed that time. Then I stayed home with my son when he was a baby and stumbled into solo practice. So I started my practice um, and it's been 15 years. So I've been practicing for over 20 years, but my practice has been over for 15 years and I've never looked back. So I
That's
enjoy what I
awesome.
do. Yeah, I enjoy what I
Yeah.
do.
And so as far as the actual law that you practice, what kind of clients do you have and cases do you take on?
Yeah, it's been an evolving stream. When I first started, I wanted to do elder financial abuse. I found that a lot of seniors were getting hit with a lot of fraud later in life, and so it was hitting their nest egg that they had planned to live off of for the rest of their life. Also, a lot of times seniors are hit by their own family members, people that come into their lives late. Usually, it's a niece, a nephew who all of a sudden is the best friend of the senior and they start changing their estate and all kinds of craziness happens. So that was what I
Yeah.
initially wanted to do. It turns out that I started my law firm just as the subprime bust was about to happen. So I didn't know that, but it
Yeah.
turns out that that's where we were heading.
Yep.
So yeah, I had all these contractors who started being referred to me, and they're like, I don't know what's happening, but I just built a little petite mansion, and all of a sudden, when it was time for my final payment, the homeowner found all these things wrong. Well, what the homeowner was doing was the homeowner was constantly financing during the subprime era and getting more and more money and then adding more and more things to to these construction contracts. So they were building this house with like studios and home theaters that literally had projectors. I mean,
Oh
full
my
blown professional projectors. I
gosh.
mean, they were just doing crazy stuff. But
Yeah.
obviously, when they couldn't borrow anymore, they got to that final payment on these construction contracts and couldn't pay, and so they found problems to try to get out of the contract. But I got those contractors, and those contractors' cases were the first cases that I won as a solo practitioner. And contractors are obviously in everyone's homes, so those
Hmm.
contractors told everybody that would listen. They're like, "Oh, you gotta see my lawyer. Go see her. She's awesome." And so that's how I started.
Oh.
That's how I started in business. Was those contractors telling everyone. So in the beginning, I didn't get the cases that I initially wanted, although I still do help seniors um, to try to do solid estate planning so they do not get taken at the end of their lives
Hmm.
by stray family members. I still do that to the extent that I can, but it just turns out my business has evolved where most of my clients are business owners or landlords. And so we had a run in Long Beach where you couldn't fire or terminate anyone. If you tried to fire or terminate an employee, for sure you were going to get sued. There's plaintiff firms that really drive what I do because I'm usually defending lawsuits. So we had some plaintiff firms who do really good work, but sometimes they get cases that you wish they wouldn't file. So I had businesses who it's like, I see why you're drowning. Your payroll is too large. And they're like, but I can't let anyone go. I'm afraid of being sued. So then we ended up going in and doing the termination. So I had that going for a while just to save some of my businesses, um, where I would go and help them downsize, and we would try to do it in a way where it was kind of litigation proof. And
Hmm.
then we had a cycle of people that went through downtown filing ADA compliance lawsuits
I remember
against
that was
people.
recently, right?
No, we had two
Oh
two
no.
runs of that. Yeah, we had it happen in downtown about 10 years ago.
Uh-huh.
And then a year and a half ago, it happened in Beaumont Shore,
On
Naples,
Second
Dixie
Street.
Knolls. Yeah,
Yeah.
that was the second round. And actually,
Oh,
they moved on. They also hit Main Street in Seal Beach. So
wow.
we ended up getting all of those cases, which I'm really proud of Belmont Shore, especially because it was Belmont Shore. They were the first business association to band together and say, look, if you'll take us as a group and
Mhm.
represent us, then we will fight back. Because the traditional wisdom is the cost of fighting those suits outweighs paying a settlement. So just settle them. But obviously,
Oh,
the more times someone files that suit and immediately gets payment, the more times that happens, the more those suits are going to happen, right? So
right.
at some point, someone had to push back, or these businesses are just going to get hit over and over again. And a lot of businesses would say that they're like, look, we know that this is just a cost of doing business. I have to build into my cost some liquidity to pay off these
Yep.
lawsuits, which is not what the statute was meant for. The statute is well
Right.
intentioned to make sure that everyone of all abilities has access to businesses. And the difference with how we handled it was that all of the businesses did whatever they could to become compliant. If they didn't already have an accessibility survey, they would get an accessibility survey. They would fix
Oh,
everything at their expense. So they would do everything that they could, um, but that still wouldn't always make satisfy the people, because there's no cash payment. So
right.
um, that firm, I think that was a calculated error with them serving like 40 businesses in Belmont Shore. That was an error because by doing that, you really set yourself up for someone to go, wait a minute. And they're like, is
Yeah.
this so illogical? You're telling me that a disabled person from San Diego drove to Long Beach, and in the month of October 2019, it was really imperative for him to join a gym, get juiced, buy shoes, visit like 15 bars and restaurants all in October. I mean, this guy
Right.
did he relocate to Long Beach? I mean, I live here and I'm not in the shore that much. So,
Right.
it didn't make sense from the very beginning. From the very
Yeah.
beginning, it didn't make any sense. So, I'm really proud of the Belmont Shore businesses in particular, and all of them except for one. I have one judge who has us. Well, I'm sorry, two. So of all those cases, they're all dismissed except for two. So we have two judges who we're still trying to get the dismissal from, but not a single client in any of my cases has paid in those lawsuits yet.
Oh my gosh, that's great. I
And
never knew how that all wrapped up, so that's nice to hear.
yeah, it is not because the businesses are don't want to be compliant. It has nothing to do
Of
with that.
course.
It's because the businesses immediately went and got compliant. So they
Mhm.
filed the cases in federal court. In federal court, if you become compliant, then there's no longer a controversy. So the fact that the businesses went out and did everything that was complained about and more to become compliant, there was no reason why the lawsuit shouldn't go away. So the strategy was, I think, equitable because the businesses said, we'll do it. We'll go and we'll do all this stuff that this accessibility expert says I need to do for my business.
Right.
So I think that the end result was what the plaintiff desired, except that they didn't get an actual liquid paycheck for many of my clients. So,
Well, that just means that you're doing your job right.
well, knock wood. Every time I say that, I like knock wood. Then rub
Right.
a leaf
Yes.
clover, anything, because it's really rare in the law to have that kind of a run on cases.
Yeah. So obviously you're super entrenched in the community. And when I was on your website, I just saw a ton of community involvement and pictures of you in the community. So could you tell us a little bit just about your involvement with Long Beach?
Yeah, well, that started with some wonderful ladies that mentored me, and I really believe that women mentoring women is very important. But anyone mentoring
Yes.
anyone is important. So the first lady that got me involved in the community, her name is Mary Ellen Kilsby. She is the former senior minister at First Congregational Church in downtown Long Beach.
Uh-huh.
And after she retired, she was very involved in the arts. So my business launched. We had survived. It looked like we were going to stay open. So she's like, okay, it looks like your business has successfully launched. So you need to give back. And I was like, to whom? Specifically, because
Right.
I'm taking care of home. I take care of my parents, and I think I'm kind of making the rounds on being, charitable. She's like, no, more than checks. You need to serve. So every board that I was on in the beginning, Marianne nominated me. So she would just call me up and she's like, yes, you're joining this board with me. And then after I started doing it, I enjoyed it. I enjoyed it because those boards are volunteer. So the entities are getting your time, your expertise, and if they need it, your boots on the ground, helping them stay afloat. And that's exactly what nonprofits need.
Yep.
Um, they need, and it needs to be a variety of different kinds of people. In the beginning, I always said, I was like, no, the first board I was on was one of the first was the Arts Council. It's like, I know nothing about the arts, and they were like, exactly. You know, if we had an Arts Council board with all artists and all execs from arts organizations, then we do not have opposing points of view. So
Right.
that's exactly why you're here, is that we need someone who is not we're not preaching to our choir. You know, we need someone that's
Yeah,
not.
yeah.
So that's how it started. And then I personally, I went through a divorce, so then I had to take my kids with me. And then I liked the fact that, well, I had to take my kids with me because my daughter's a bit of a pill. And I couldn't find a sitter. So, I mean, that's the truth. The truth is, you know, I would have much rather attended board meetings alone, but she has successfully driven away all of our babysitters. So, so she's delightful, but so the kids, for me to continue to serve, they would have to come with me. And we had this little trick when they were younger. We travel a lot. So the trick is at home they get electronics, video games, iPads, anything that plugs in, they get it equal amount of time to the time they practice piano. So, yeah, so my son plays piano really well because of course he became obsessed with the Xbox. And once he became obsessed with the Xbox, he would practice. I'm like, honey, you've been playing the piano for an hour. That's not long enough. He just keep practicing because he needed enough time to be able to play his game sufficiently. But that give and take where you get plugged in for the amount of time you practice piano also had an added effect in that when I would go to board meetings, I would say, okay, this is bonus time. You get your iPad. So they would plug in their iPad and it would be totally quiet. I could sit for a 3-hour board meeting, which if you have a 3-hour board meeting, there's a problem. But I sit for a 3-hour board meeting and the kids would just be totally silent. And when we traveled, I had another exception, which was you get unlimited plug-in time on the plane. Yeah. So always come and comment. They're like, how old are your kids? Like 2, 6? They were totally silent and they didn't even know. Well, it's because, on the plane, I'm like, yeah, party on. Plug in your iPad, play all the video games you want. Like, keep them occupied. And people were always complimenting me. And I was like, well, I'm not going to tell you the secret to how to keep your kids.
Or your secret sauce.
Yeah, I'm not going to tell you that secret. And still to this day, my son still, he's 16 now. Although now he groans about it, but he's like, I'm playing Xbox. So he goes over and he's like practicing piano with a scowl on his face.
Oh,
but
that's good though. He'll be happy and later in life that he can play.
I said that's the thing is that when he wanted to quit, I would always adults who quit playing instruments when they were younger. I haven't talked to a single adult that doesn't say, I wish my parents would have made me keep playing. I haven't found a single adult that was like, no, I'm glad I quit. Every adult, especially with piano, every adult says, I wish I hadn't given it up. And so I say that all the time, so it was a benefit kind of that all the sitters were driven away because it became very natural to my kids to sometimes obviously pull the earbuds out and listen. And so I remember one time my son saying we're going to do something, I don't know, or you're going to paint something or whatever, and it was something that was kid friendly. And so he's like, what are we doing, Mom? What are your causes? So like, it was like,
oh, yeah.
Yeah, but it wasn't like, he was just like, what are we going to do? We're going to do one of your causes? Okay. So for them, it became something that was just a part of what we do as a family. And I have some great memories with them of like picking up trash in parks and doing all that stuff. And they wouldn't complain at all. The things that we take for granted as adults. So you have a park cleanup or a beach cleanup, and someone brings like several dozen donuts.
Yeah.
And so as adults, we're like, no, not eating the donut. Don't need the extra weight. Not going to do it. But with a kid, they're like picking up the whole park, and it's like, okay, you can have the donuts. Yes, the kids
Yeah,
For
yeah.
kids, it's a different experience, you know. So I don't mind they kind of connected certain things. Like I'm in Long Beach
Yeah.
Rotary, and so to my
Mhm.
kids for years, Long Beach Rotary was the place that they got cookies because every Rotary meeting, I would grab 2 cookies for them.
Yeah.
And so they quickly connected Rotary with cookies. And if we were doing a park cleanup with Rotary, then Rotary was connected to the donuts after. So it was all connected to the treat for a while.
Yes. Right,
But
right.
as I got older, they're just like, oh, this is another one of your things, right, for the community, right? One of your service things. It became something different, and I like that that became a part of their growing up.
Yeah, absolutely. To have that creates service oriented adults, which we always need more of.
Yeah, well, I hope so. I hope it carries forward with them as adults and with their kids. But it was Mary Ellen Kilsby who was the first, and then a woman named Dr. Minnie Douglas in the city of Long Beach. She was the second person that started calling me up, going, "Yeah, you're joining CCEJ," and it's like I am. Okay, tell me about it. You know.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
yeah, so that's kind of how it started. But I'm proud that I have 2 boards where I did all three, so 3 3-year terms, so meaning that I served the maximum. And one's the Arts Council, and the other is Long Beach Day Nursery with the
Wow.
preschoolers. Yeah, so both of
Oh,
those
wonderful.
I served the full term and went on the honorary board. I'm very proud of that because it is
Yeah,
you're volunteering your time and your treasure, because obviously we financially support the organizations that we serve on. So
right,
um,
right.
there's a lot of people in the city that do it. I just needed in the beginning of my career, I didn't know that that was part of it. But
Mm-hmm.
Mary Ellen and Dr. Minnie Douglas, they made it very clear. Okay, from our point of view, you're settled. So what are you going to do with the excess? Excess
Yeah,
time,
yeah.
excess treasure. What do you do with the excess? So they were really great about getting me to think about, yeah, I should be putting something back into the community. Um, and so that's where it started. It wasn't really like
Yeah.
something that came from me, but came from some wonderful ladies in the community.
I think I think we could all learn a lesson there, and that's something good for all of us to think about is always giving back to our communities. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, having grown up here, I think it's nice to see Long Beach grow. It's nice to
Mm-hmm.
see Long Beach thrive. So I didn't intend to settle in the town where I grew up, but I am proud of our city, and I'm proud of the things that we do here as a city and the commitments that we have.
Absolutely.
Um, and we'll see how it goes. My son is determined not to settle in Long Beach, but my daughter seems to be happy here. So maybe another
Good.
generation will
Yeah,
settle here.
yeah.
Yeah.
So I know you're busy, so we don't want to take up too much of your time. But before we wrap up, just we've been wrapping up all of our interviews with asking, what does Black History Month mean to you?
Well, I've participated in quite a few, over the course of my career. And
Mm-hmm.
I think what makes me proudest about Black History Month is how it's connected to and has inspired other movements.
Mm-hmm.
So the civil rights movement, a lot of the methods, especially the nonviolent methods, were that they were employed for the equal rights movement for women, for the LGBTQIA movement. A lot of that references back to what was done by African American leaders of the 50s and 60s, and that makes me really proud that it serves as a reference point and even an inspiration. And I know that it has served as an inspiration for me my entire life because as I learned more about the history of the African American in America, I became more and more inspired not to let those people down. So, right now I can walk into just about any place that I want. Not to say that I don't experience racism, but for the most part, I can go wherever I want and do whatever I want. Um, to me, it's an insult not to be registered and voting. It's just an insult
Mm-hmm.
because there are
Yep.
people who stood in front of dogs, stood in front of fire hoses, were beaten, um, who were denied that right their entire lives and fought for it. So to me, it's just an insult not to exercise it. Um, I think it's just um, important to honor what they did by trying to live the best life that I can. So I want to be the best lawyer, the best parent, the best business owner, the best friend, the best daughter. I want to do all of that because they laid a foundation that it would kind of be tragic for me to waste all their hard work.
I love that. Beautiful. Good way to wrap up. Well, thank you so much for your time today. I really enjoyed talking to you. Yeah, of course. Of course.
I was surprised when you called me. I thought you were calling me for me to refer you to someone else. So I'm glad.
Oh, we were looking for you.
I appreciate that. Thank you.
Of course, of course. And if anybody's watching after the fact, we'll put Michele's contact information down below in case you ever need her services.
Thank you
All
so
right,
much.
so thank you.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye.